Today's story was written by Reddit user N4Hire. Broken Silence. I am a mother, blessed with 12 of my blood. They hear the same tale passed by my ancestors. The quiet is what keeps us safe. But it didn't. It was the loud noises that got us freedom. It was the rhythmic screams of a species that gave hope to 1,000 stars. I remember hearing it for the first time. It was a rallying cry that resounded on every planet and moon, even our star. Even the great mother of all our people danced to it. It was fiery and uncontrollable, and it was beautiful. It was 1,000 years after the silence failed us. We kept quiet, just like everyone else in the known galaxy. We kept our signals limited, our voices quiet, our actions limited to our own solar system. It was enough. The moons and the rocks would sustain our world for thousands of years. We tried not to venture outside our realm. We feared that the few probes launched from our planet 100 years before would reach those we feared the most. We feared that we weren't quite enough, that they would come someday, and we prayed to the Great Mother to keep us safe. And for a time, we were. First contact wasn't what our thinkers thought it would be. A vessel that looked like it would fall apart from us just looking at it came onto our planet. They politely asked to be received. Its occupants, not much different than us, apart from the extra leg and one more finger on their hands. Their eyes reminded me of our youngest, big and expressive. Taller than us, they instilled a sense of wonder and surprise. Then, life changed for our species forever. Then, our hopes and dreams turned to fear. We all seen the vids. The almost derelict, massive ships simultaneously landing in several of our nations. Almost in a synchronized way, they came down from their platform, dressed in brown and grey garments that hide their size, patches of their blue-coloured skin visible on their hands and elongated feet. The aliens came down from their ships, and to everyone's surprise, on every nation they arrived at, bowed down and begged us, "Please, for your children and their children, be quiet." They called themselves the Order of Silent Life. At least, that's our translation. Their ships travel the endless oceans of stars, teaching others of the consequences of not staying quiet, of pushing too hard for the stars. They will come for you, and they would leave no life standing. They will erase you from existence and leave your world a silent ball of molten glass. They told us what would happen, and when many challenged the idea, they showed us what happened to those who didn't respect the silence. They showed us 1,000 worlds dying, species burned away and taken as material for those who hate the sounds of creation. It was undeniable, the gasp of dying species now gone from the universe. May the Great Mother keep them. The order came, showed their proofs, and left. Days later, a piece of their ship was found at the landing location. The ship was old, older than our civilization, and it was falling apart. Our thinkers, convinced that it was because they wanted to look weak and pitiful, harmless, to whoever was watching the order travel the void. We wondered for a long time if it was true. Ultimately, we accepted it. For 1,000 years we kept quiet. We stayed within the borders of our own system. Most of our population concentrated on our own planet. Just a valiant few worked on the planets and asteroids for resources. While radio communications were still common, we were told by the Order that they would not create major problems until we actively used it to contact others or more advanced communication became available. By the time I was ready to be a mother, we had forgotten our own rules. The many cried and pleaded, but the need to explore was too strong. So, one after the other, councils of leadership declare that the rule of silence was to be ignored, and we set out to probe the expanse. By the time 3 of mine were born, our first envoy into the darkness was already on the way. 2 vessels containing the best of us, my 2 of my mates included. It would take them 3 cycles to get to their destination. 100 of our sons and daughters valiantly took to the stars. Many believed that was the reason they came. It doesn't matter. They came either way. The light of the Sky Mother, opaque with hundreds of shadows, insect-like crafts flying in massive formations, were seen all over my purple sky. Most of our weapons incapable of stopping them. The weapons that did work seemed to be as deadly to our own troops as to the great enemy. Our cities burned and our prayers multiplied. Our military forces fought on with a rage that made our ancient ancestors proud. Ultimately, it wasn't enough. Towers of fire came from the stars and transformed our most proud cities into glass. You could see them from our cradle vault, fiery death all over the landscape. Our information clans would do their best to show us the rest. On the areas untouched by the fire towers, another evil would take place. We would see giant structures crash into the land, spine-like spears stabbing our land deep upon landing, and almost immediately a black and orange mist would surround the structure and cover the landscape when we saw them. They killed and ravaged in total silence. To me, they looked like the monster of our ancient legends. I tried to make sense of them, and ultimately, the closest thing to my mind were the harmless ocean urchins we found on our beaches. Twice our size, an uneven body, almost changing shape every time it moves. From their erratic movements, you could see its head, a protruding biological structure covered with fangs and misplaced eyes. But it wasn't the worst part of them. It was their spines, or tentacles, if you could call them that, both a way of moving the creature around and its main weapons. They seemed to tighten and stiff to be used as a stabbing weapon, then it would be a fluid limp twitching and constantly moving and changing direction. No one creature would look the same as the others. One had only 4 spines, the other 7, but they would all move the same, erratically and with quiet rage. Our warriors had difficulty keeping their distance from them. Even when they did, the creatures would also have a form of fiery plasma that would dissolve their victims at range. I saw a vid where several of them chased an entire family down a street. A few of our warriors were able to give a few more seconds of life to the family. I saw as the family managed to crawl into a waste port, closing the heavy cover just at the moment that the last of the valiant warriors was slain. The creatures easily gathered on top of the metal cover, and after easily disposing of it, they proceeded to spew their plasma inside. I could hear their screams. The few monsters that were not visibly contributing to this slaughter would seem to shake violently at hearing the screaming. Our people understood that fairly quick. They were attracted to sound. Our military forces learned that they did their best to keep them from our most populated vault. They were nightmares in motion. They made everything quiet. The 4th day after their arrival, I watched as the fire tower burnt everything on their path. I could feel the heat from one of the columns of death that was heading directly in our direction. There were no more wails, no more desperate tears coming from the cradle vault. Almost 2,000 of my people behind me quietly waited for this burning demise. That early morning, I had left the safety of the vault and watched with my children as the fire got closer. Maybe it would be quick. I can feel the heat. Please, Great Mother, make it quick. The birds flew above me, trying their best to survive just one more precious moment. Then it happened. No more silence from the vastness of the stars. Every comms unit and radio receiver, one message, one question, one glorious sound. This is the Admiral Abani Awolowo, on board the carrier Pride of Georgia. To all receiving sentient species on 4th planet closest to the local star, do you require assistance? Do we have permission to intervene? I say again, this is Admiral Abani Awolowo. Do you need assistance? I yelled yes to my screen. I heard hundreds of voices yelling behind me. The roar of their voices almost made me miss the last communication. Understood. To all people of your world, find shelter and stay safe. Admiral Awolowo, out. For a few moments I feared that my poor mind had created it all. I prayed to the Great Mother for help. Then I noticed it. The heat was gone. All the towers of fires stopped. The swarm of ships left our skies and headed to the atmosphere. One swarm flew above us, headed upwards into the empty sky. They were fast, deadly and terrifying, and then they were gone. In a moment, a dark cloud turned into an uncountable number of small explosions. The entire swarm, gone. Something passed exactly between them, something so fast and destructive that it seemed to leave a scar on the sky. It destroyed the swarm completely. Burning debris was coming down. My eldest child yelled my name, taking me out of my stupor. I ran back into the vault as hundreds of pieces of ships crashed all around the area. Hours later, a few of our people left the vault. I will never forget what I saw as we all stared at the night sky. Fire explosions adorned the heavens far away from us. Falling ships lighted the darkness. I saw them fall, the silence replaced by thundering sonic booms. There was no silence that night. A remaining information clan started transmissions the next morning. Camera crews showed a nightmarish landscape, the outskirts of my own city, now a burning pile of death and destruction, and one of those creatures dropped ships. It stood tall and menacing, surrounded by the black and orange mist. You could see the creatures moving around in it. I jumped as an explosion rocked the alien structure. Fiery pieces of the structure fell down on top of several of the creatures, the mist quickly dissipating. I saw how the exposed creatures ran towards our ship. You could see desperation in their movements. Another impact hits the monster's ship, and the entire thing exploded, the blast decimating the creatures close to it. Some of the creatures turned to save their lives, and for the first time I heard them. Their growls and ticks sound desperate. They were afraid. They were terrified. Their fear was short-lived. Suddenly, loud weapons fire drowned all sound of the transmission. The creatures' bodies torn apart from many directions. The sounds were different than our weapons, and it was too destructive and too effective. Multiple explosions took out some of the creatures, pieces of them flying into the air. As the mist and smoke cleared, I noticed them, their shape. Smaller than us, covered in black armors. I could see colour patches on their shoulders and arms, the only thing breaking their perfect armour. They moved together, their weapons facing the creatures. We came to know their names. Human. One of the issues our warriors had to deal with was that the creatures moved like twitching fish on water. They would change direction, cut one of us down with one hit of their tentacle spines, spew their acidic plasma at the warriors, keeping their distance. The warriors that survived the initial encounter would struggle to hit the creature, and even then, most of our small arms would not be enough to kill even one. This, humans had no problem taking them. The monster's erratic movement seemed to not be enough to save them, and those that figured that out fast and tried to take cover would be decimated by some of the most destructive weapons I had seen. The humans would round them together and move them down with massive concentrated fire. And even if that didn't work, humans put so much firepower on one area that it didn't matter if the creatures could resist damage. They would just be atomized. It was just too much for them. The few pockets of the creatures that managed to escape were brought down in what I can only believe was torture for them. I could hear the music. It was different on the many vids. The humans taught us the names, art created hundreds of years ago that still held a value to their species. The one that I remember was the name of the flight of the Valkyries. The creatures ran desperately trying to escape the sound of it. For some reason they tended to run towards each other. Once a group was properly rounded up, it was blasted to oblivion. I heard of one particular case. A group of human warriors played music from a group named AC/DC and Metallica for a whole solar cycle. By the time they decided to engage the monster, the creatures had proceeded to kill each other before sustaining more torture. The few surviving creatures would crawl on the ground weakly and pitifully. I was told that particular group was slightly reprimanded for that. The humans seemed to value all life. I could not for the Great Mother understand how they could have mercy towards a monster of silence. It's the 20th day since the day they came. My own and many others lived by the bravery of the humans. Few worried about them conquering us. That was not the case. Communications were established fairly quickly, and with that, hope for my people. As I write this, I can see the human transport. My youngest said it looked like a giant bird with a big head and a tail and all. I could see VOTL thrusters directing the ship. It was fast and agile and had enough room to fit 15 of us if necessary. They told us to stay in the vaults for the time being. Too many areas were still on fire after the attack. Thankfully, the wooded area around this vault remained safe, so we didn't argue. Today, they were bringing water and food and rescuing the most isolated survivors. The cheering in the vault caught my attention. Apparently, a new planetary government had been quickly put together, their first order of business to meet with the humans and to plan the next step. My youngest says she is hungry, so I will see what the humans are bringing. I guess I'll write about what happened in space. We had no way to see it for sure, but thankfully the humans showed us the battle above our planet. Today, I give thanks to the Great Mother for bringing the humans here. I can hear their music. They are playing something reggae? Someone called Bob? The name makes my young laugh. The sound is full of love and tenderness, and two of my oldest dance to it happily. I love it.